You know, something happened to horror. Somewhere between the 90s and today, it got safer, cleaner, more polite, but also meaner, darker, and more nihilistic. But not always, because every once in a while, a filmmaker comes along who actually gets it. And they make something that doesn't just look like the golden era, it feels like it. These are the 10 best modern horror films that prove the golden era of horror never really died. It just went underground for a while. So pop that tape in. I got you. Let's go do this. Alright, I am Chase and welcome back to ABA Pop Culture. Today we have 10 films, all made in the last 20 years or so, and one pick, I promise you, is going to be controversial for a lot of you out there, so stay tuned for number 2. But right now, let's kick this off at number 10 with 2011's The Cabin in the Woods. We're starting here with a movie that really shouldn't work in a lot of ways because The Cabin in the Woods on the surface looks like every horror movie you've ever seen. You got 5 college kids, a remote cabin, bad decisions, and you've been there before many times. Hell, the cabin even looks like the one from The Evil Dead. Except you don't know what's going to happen on this one. It takes a turn because what Joss Whedon and Drew Goddard built underneath that familiar shell is one of the smartest, most audacious love letters to horror ever put on screen. This isn't a parody. It's not a spoof. It's a genuinely scary movie in many places, a great creature feature in others, and then it tears the roof off the entire genre. The twist, and I'm not going to ruin it for you if you haven't seen it, it reframes every horror movie you've ever seen. Every cliche you've been groaning about for 30 or 40 years, well, there's a reason for it. It's going to explain why it's a part of us. And the final act of this film is pure, unhinged chaos in all the best possible ways. This is what happens when genuinely brilliant writers and filmmakers who grew up on horror decide to construct it from the inside out. It belongs on this list because it understands the language and the aesthetic of 80s horror so deeply it can subvert it completely. And that takes a real love for the genre. Cabin in the Woods comes in at number 10. Now, number 9 takes us back to a very specific time and feeling. We are going with summer 84. You know that feeling of summer that seemed like it would last forever when you were a kid back then? Bikes, neighborhoods, best friends, adventures, nothing but time and imagination to get you going. Summer of 84 absolutely nails that. And then it twists a knife into it. You got 4 teenage friends in a quiet suburban neighborhood, and they start to suspect their neighbor, an ordinary friendly cop, your friendly next door neighbor cop, they think he might just be a evil serial killer. And what starts as kids playing a detective story, having a summer adventure in their imaginations, suddenly becomes something that is actually genuinely terrifying. And here's what separates Summer of 84 from every other Stranger Things knockoff that was happening around that time. This one has the nerve to actually follow through with it. The ending of the film is brutal. It's one of those classic setups for a sequel ending, and I mean that. It commits to its darkness there in a way that kind of changes the tone of the whole film, but it feels legitimately 80s in the whole, we've got to set up the sequel. All right, the good is winning. Let's set up the sequel. It has that because 80s horror, even when the good triumphed, there was always that stinger, that little thing at the end that left it open for a sequel, right? But this movie understands that the most frightening thing isn't necessarily the monster. It's the realization that the monster was right there next to you all the time and could always be there at any time. And everyone around you just gets way too comfortable and way too into their day-to-day lives to see it. If you haven't seen this one, clear an evening, watch it in the dark, and maybe don't look out your window at your neighbor's house when it's over. Summer 84 comes in at number 9. All right, at number 8, we have 2022's X. Yes. So here's the pitch for X. It's 1979. You got a ragtag crew of adult filmmakers, and they head out to a remote Texas farm to shoot a movie, a quote movie, on the cheap. And the elderly couple who owns the property don't exactly know what kind of film is being made. And when things start to go wrong, they go very, very wrong. Ty West shot this thing exactly like he had watched Texas Chainsaw Massacre a bunch of times and kind of had that image in his head. The pacing, the long, slow tension that builds up before everything happens. There are moments in this film that genuinely feel pulled from another era that's being homaged here. You'd swear that you were watching Tobe Hooper for sure in this, and that's kind of what they're going for here. But what makes X so special is that it isn't just stylistically faithful to those movies like that. It has something to say about ambition that gets carried on into subsequent films, about desire, because this is very exploitive the way 80s and late 70s horror was. But Ty West made this and the prequel, Pearl, and then the final part of the trilogy, Maxine. And Pearl is different. It's on its own terms. But X is the one that belongs on this list, in my opinion, is far superior to the other films in this trilogy because it proves a modern horror director can genuinely recreate the soul of like a 70s sort of exploitation slasher film and not just the look of it. This is one for serious horror fans on this channel, and you know who you are, X. All right, now number 7 is my surprise pick. And I want you to hear me out because this is one of the best horror films I've seen in many, many years. It is 2022's The Last Video Store. The Last Video Store is an independent film that made its way to get released by Arrow Video. And if you know Arrow Video, they're top of the line. They put out great films, and this is one of them. This is a love letter, a genuine, heartfelt, meticulously crafted love letter to the VHS rental era, to the 80s horror, to the experience of walking into a video rental store on a Friday night with no plan and leaving with something that would burn into your brain. The premise is the last remaining video store really on Earth is being threatened, and the horror movies inside the tapes start bleeding into our reality. There's basically a Necronomicon of a VHS tape in here, and that's all I'm going to tell you. Those things step into our world in pure 80s B-movie and horror film fashion, and what this film does that almost nothing else does is capture the feeling, the true feeling of that era. Not just the aesthetics, not all of the Stranger Things of it all, but the true warmth, the real feeling of living back then, the community of it. The idea that the video store wasn't just a place to rent movies, it was a place where film culture lived at street level, where the guy behind the counter could change your taste in movies forever with a single recommendation. And I'll be honest with you, this one got me so hard. I blind bought it, and it is the best purchase I've made in a long time as far as blind buys go. I love this movie so much. It is impossible not to respond to this film if you grew up in that world. And the fact that Arrow Video championed it and put it out tells you everything. This is the kind of film we need more of. The kind that only gets made by people who genuinely believe in what movies meant to us back then and what they mean to us now. Check this one out. Seek it, find it, grab it. The Last Video Store comes in at number 7. Now, number 6 changes the tone a little bit with 2019's Dr. Sleep. And this is Mike Flanagan, and he does horror well. He does. And I want to make a case for this film because I believe it deserves to be here unquestioned. Everyone knows The Shining is Stephen King's book and Kubrick's visual masterpiece. I'm a student of that film. I can tell you every lens that was used. And so when this was announced that it was being a sequel for that, you're a little apprehensive to start with. You've got plenty of skepticism. How do you follow the original Shining with that story? Why would you even try? But Flanagan's answer is you don't try to be Kubrick. You be yourself. And that's what Flanagan does at his absolute best here. And the acting in this film and the homage paid to The Shining, where this movie comes from, is incredible. It understands all the grief, trauma, and supernatural heaviness that came from The Shining, and it doesn't let it stay buried. It brings it out. Ewan McGregor plays Danny in this, and he does it awesome. He spent decades running from what happened at the Overlook Hotel, running from his own shine, and now he's an alcoholic. He's broken, and he's being pulled back into something he's tried to escape his whole life. But what makes Dr. Sleep feel like an 80s horror isn't just the setting or the aesthetics or the tie-in. It's really the emotional honesty of the movie. It wasn't made by a committee. You can tell. 80s horror at its best wasn't just about scares. It was about characters you actually cared about facing down things that genuinely threaten them. The good versus evil of it all. Dr. Sleep has that. The villains in this film are led by Rebecca Ferguson, who is absolutely chilling and frightening, and she represents the bad, literally in a black hat, right? And then you have the good, the reluctant good that does the right thing, that battle versus good and evil. And you don't see that a lot in modern horror anymore. But Flanagan brings it here. Dr. Sleep is absolutely awesome. It does The Shining, Stephen King, and Stanley Kubrick proud. It comes in at number 6. Now, number 5, we have one of the legitimately most scary movies I have ever seen, particularly as an adult. It's 2016's The Autopsy of Jane Doe. This movie is about 10 years old now, and a lot of people still haven't seen it, but man, it is scary. The setup is very deceptively simple. You have a father and son who are both coroners, and they receive an unidentified body one night, a Jane Doe, who is pulled from a crime scene with no apparent cause of death, and what follows is one long, continuous autopsy of the Jane Doe. Go figure. And the more they find, the less sense it makes, and the worse things get. Storms start to hit outside, flooding, lightning. This film has everything, and it does everything with almost nothing. It is mostly only 2 characters the whole movie. It takes place essentially in one room with those 2 characters and a body, and an escalating sense of supernatural horror and dread that is almost unbearable by the time you get to the 3rd act of the film. But what makes this thing feel like a horror classic is the craft of it all. There's an understanding here that horror is built by withholding information. You are digging into this, literally, this mystery along with the 2 main characters, and it shows you just enough each time to let your imagination start to run wild. The sound design's extraordinary. The pacing is great. Brian Cox and Emile Hirsch are excellent in this film, and that matters because you have to have characters you believe in this for this type of horror to work. You can't be scared for people you don't care about. You care about these 2. If you showed me this film without telling me when it was made, I might have guessed sometime around 1982 or 1983, and that is a compliment in the highest order coming from me. This is a hidden gem for a lot of people on this list, so hopefully I'm introducing some of you to it. Check out Autopsy of Jane Doe. It comes in at number 5. And at number 4, we have 2024's Late Night with the Devil, and this one blew me away when I saw it. Late Night with the Devil is presented as recovered footage from a 1977 Halloween broadcast of a late night talk show. And the host, Jack Delroy, is played brilliantly by David Dastmalchian, and he's a Johnny Carson type of a character who's been struggling with ratings. And on this Halloween special, to boost the numbers, he brings on a series of paranormal guests: a mentalist, a skeptic, and a survivor of a cult, and a little girl who may or may not be possessed. And then things start to go sideways on television. The period detail in this film is off the charts. They use period correct cameras in some case. It is just perfect. If you grew up watching late night television and late night talk show hosts, the aesthetic, the set design, the laugh tracks, the applause, the studio audience, everything is perfect. Just absolute fidelity of that whole aesthetic. You found some, it's like you watch this, you found something on an old VHS that you didn't even know existed till now. And what it does that classic horror does, and what modern horror almost never does, is build. This is that good versus evil again, and he might have done evil without realizing how much that cost him, and you may have to pay for that at the end, so it has that kind of vibe to it, but still, he brings that charisma. This is like appointment horror viewing, particularly around Halloween. Late Night with the Devil, awesome. It comes in at number 4. And now we're at the top 3, and kicking off the top 3 is 2013's The Conjuring, James Wan. This is a mainstream Hollywood movie that still genuinely felt like a great old school haunted house horror film. And here's what James Wan did that almost nobody does anymore. He made an actual ghost story with restraint, with craft. This movie is rated R without the exploitation angle. There's not a lot of blood. There's not a lot of nudity. There's not a bunch of jump scares. The thing is just damn scary on its own. It's great storytelling. It feels like it was produced back in the day. It just has all of those vibes to it. You've got the family that moves into a farmhouse in Rhode Island, and strange things start happening. And then you bring in Ed and Lorraine Warren, who are real-life paranormal investigators whose files are what this film is supposed to be based upon. And when they get there, things start to get worse. But what makes The Conjuring work is what makes all great movies like this work. It's you believe in the family. You care about the family. You care about what scares them, what happens to them. And that makes it legitimately scary because you are invested in the people, in the characters. Vera Farmiga, I always say her name wrong, plays Lorraine Warren, and she gives a great performance in this, kind of cold, kind of deadpan, but it's like she sees it all. She brings a great kind of vibe to that character, and Patrick Wilson is equally good. I like him in most everything he does. But the reason the film earns the number 3 spot is more simple than all that. It's came at a time when people had stopped being afraid of horror movies, and this one made them afraid again. It reminded an entire generation horror could be great again. Everything that came after this is built on that foundation. Scared the hell out of me and my friend Lance. We saw it at a midnight screening on a day off while filming our own horror movie. Came home, watched Sweet Home Alabama with the lights on. The Conjuring comes in at number 3. All right, now is when I'm ready to fight, because what is coming at number 2 is one of my favorite horror movies ever. Doesn't mean I don't have some issues with it, but it is one of my favorite horror movies ever, and maybe the best in a very, very famous franchise. It is 2009's Friday the 13th. And I can hear you because this is number 2 on the list. This is fighting number 1, number 2 in my favorite Friday the 13th movies of all time. I think the final chapter edges it at number 1 because I think that's the best of all the Friday the 13th movies, but this one's right there to me. This movie is that good. So before you close the video, hear me out and I'll make a case, because the 2019 Friday the 13th remake is, in my opinion, maybe the best slasher of the modern era. And here's why. You got Marcus Nispel and the team behind this film that didn't really try to do something really new with Jason. They went back to the basics. The first 15 minutes, the opening of this movie, is a awesome Friday the 13th homage whole movie in and of itself. It's like its own short film. And they bring him back to work at Crystal Lake. The tension, the practical kills. Yes, he runs around, but you know what? Jason ran around a lot in part 3. People just forget it. This Jason, played by Derek Mears, who's an awesome guy, is still terrifying. And I really wish we had more sequels of this. He's tactical. He's a predator. The one thing I didn't like about it is this came at a time when they were doing the whole, we're going to explain the supernatural away from characters like Jason and Michael Myers. But they do kind of back out of that by the end. The kills in this are inventive. They're practical. You've got all the tropes. This is like a love letter to Friday the 13th movies. All the nudity, the if you have sex or get nude or drink, Jason's going to get you. That whole morality tale of it all. They went back there. The Crystal Lake setting feels genuinely dangerous. The film doesn't overstay its welcome. It gets in and out. It hits the marks. You've got Jared Padalecki as kind of a final guy to go along with what is almost 2 different final girls in this film, and he is great as a foil. He has a great fight with Jason. I understand purists don't like it sometimes. I don't care. This is the foundation. It is a sampling of all the great parts of Friday the 13th movies. It captures everything that made this franchise so great. It's at number 2 on this list. Yes, I'll die on that hill. And honestly, the comment section is probably going to be lit over this, but I'll see you down there because I can defend Friday the 13th, 2009. And at number 1 is maybe my favorite. It's definitely my favorite modern horror film of all time. It is top 5, probably for me, horror films of all time. It is that good. It is 2007's Trick or Treat. This is number 1 because it feels like it was literally made around 1985. The film sat on a shelf for 2 years before it was released directly to home video. No theatrical run, no marketing campaign, no love, just a movie that found its audience one Halloween at a time. And it became one of the most beloved horror films of the 21st century. The structure alone is a work of art, in my opinion. Multiple interconnected stories, an anthology all set on the same Halloween night in the same small town, an urban legend about the rules of Halloween, a school bus full of children, a neighborhood populated by secrets, and Little Sam, the spirit or demon of Halloween, the small figure in the orange pajamas and the burlap mask, weaving through all of it as the spirit of Halloween itself. What Daughtry understood with this deeply at like a horror DNA of the 80s level is what Halloween is supposed to feel like. Everything in this is drenched in Halloween. The danger, the lights, the decorations, the costumes, the darkness, the joy of it all existing together simultaneously. Halloween in this film isn't just a setting. It is a living, breathing, colorful thing with real consequences and real rules. And if you break the rules, Sam will find you. This film looks like the 80s. It feels like the 80s. The practical effects, the anthology structure, the undertone of the stories. One of the greatest compliments I ever got in my life was Bloody Disgusting and Ain't It Cool News comparing my horror anthology Creature Feature to Trick or Treat and Creepshow. That was the high point for me. This is John Carpenter's Halloween crossed with Creepshow is what this really is. Crossed with something that belongs entirely to itself. There is no other film from the last 25, 30 years that has captured the spirit of golden era Halloween horror as completely as this one. None. They don't exist. If you have seen it, you know exactly what I'm talking about. If you somehow haven't seen it, I genuinely envy you for getting to watch it for the first time. This is number 1. That's the list. But this is just the beginning because later this year, during spooky season, we're going to re-rank and expand this list to a top 25, the full definitive rankings of the best modern horror films ever made. So hit the bell, like and subscribe. I really appreciate it. I'll see you back here for that one when the leaves start to turn and it's time for little Sam to come out. I hope you enjoyed this. If you want to support what we're doing here a little bit more, on our way to 50,000, under 1,000 away as I record this, my Patreon link is in the description. You'll get your name on every video, behind the scenes looks at my filmmaking, special members only videos, and so much more, and I really do appreciate it. But until next time, be kind, rewind like always. This is Chase with AV Pop Culture, and I'll see you real soon. Bye-bye. Bye now.